is going on, everybody? Today we are going to talk about 5 myths about humbuckers, and we are then going to kind of take the results of debunking those myths and put them into some practical application so that you'll be able to hear the result of not believing those myths, if that makes sense. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and the like button. We talk about guitar stuff every day here at DylanTalksTone. That's what we do. We don't have sponsors for this video, but we do have 2 pickups on sale this week at DylanTalksTone, our DAF and our Super 8, and we're going to talk about why those 2 particular ones in a few minutes. So let's get straight into our 5 pickup myths that kind of, well, they've resulted in a lot of weirdness over the years. Number 1, vintage PAFs were unevenly wound intentionally, and that's where the magic of the tone came from. This is basically just false. Basically, the design of a humbucker pickup was actually the result of taking a P90, which has 10,000 winds of 42 gauge wire on one big single coil, and splitting it into 2 coils, wiring them out of phase with each other so that you would have this hum canceling situation, but overall the same wind count. So you would have 5,000 on each. That was the design, that was the patent. There's this common myth that they intentionally made them different winds by 300 to 500 winds or something to change the sound, and that's why modern pickups don't sound the same, because they don't have this magic thing. And people have said, oh yeah, ours are offset wound to do this vintage mojo thing, but the bottom line is they were designed to have 5,000 apiece. Are there some mistakes probably out there somewhere that somebody took apart and quote unquote counted the winds? Maybe, but that's not the magic of the sound. That was not the intended design. 5,000 per coil, end of story. Number 2 is more of a how-to concerning some myths. So let's get into this. How do you get a good vintage spec PAF? What is the best way to get the perfect vintage spec PAF? There are some really good companies out there that do a very good job of getting close. Think Throwback, for example. Those guys are in Michigan. They're really cool. I actually got to meet them about a year ago. Really cool guys. They make extremely, because new old stock parts and all this various stuff, and they really get these super kind of vintage correct vibes going with that stuff. But the bottom line is they are not going to be exact for 2 reasons. One, the copper that is in the wire that was used back then versus now is just different. Copper is better now. There's less impurities. The way we make copper is better. I think Jimmy Page started some rumor about where the copper came from in Africa, blah, 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 and whatever. That's dumb, but the bottom line is that copper is better now than it used to be. And you'll hear a lot of people say, well, does it have oxygen free, whatever, and they'll name a bunch of specs. And the bottom line is most reputable places that make pickups are using basically the same wire from the same company, Electrosola. That's mostly what everybody uses. And so there isn't really that much variation in it. The other thing having to do with vintage spec with this is going to be the coatings on the wire. So if you'll notice, like with our pickups, you'll see that it has a clear coating on it, so you can see the copper. You think of an old vintage pickup that has plain enamel coating on it. Well, that plain enamel is a completely different material, and you can buy plain enamel wire still. It costs about twice what regular wire costs. However, it's not the same formulation of insulation. And the reason is because they found out that insulation was giving people cancer. Because apparently everything gives us cancer, but the bottom line is they regulated some stuff and they cannot make that plain enamel the same way they make it now. So it's different. So if you think you're going to get some super magic mojo thing by spending extra money and it's going to get you this beautiful whatever magic mojo tone, not the brand, the feel, uh, you're just, it's okay. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. I'm not going to stop you from buying it. I think it's awesome. I think going down that road and getting something very vintage correct for maybe a restoration, or maybe, you know, you're trying to build to some spec, that's very, very cool. But just understand that you're not getting a vintage pickup. The way to get the vintage sound from a vintage pickup is buy a vintage pickup. They're very expensive, but you can find them. Is it worth doing? Man, it's kind of cool. You know, if you can get actual 58, 59, 60-ish PAFs, if you can get a pair, you know, in an affordable, semi-affordable fashion, either buying some old ones on eBay or Reverb or somewhere, or buying maybe an SG or some non-Les Paul style guitar with those kind of early PAFs, it's worth it. They're very, very cool. So I'm not saying don't do it, but just understand what you're buying when you see somebody that says, we're making vintage spec PAFs. Now let's look at another myth. A lot of folks will default to DC resistance for determining output, okay? Here's the thing, that there's more than one spec to a pickup than just DC resistance. Let me show you. This is my PRS Fiore, and this bridge pickup has about 8.2K resistance. So here we go. All right. Now, I'm not going to change any settings on the amp. Obvious output difference, right? Obvious output difference. This has 8.2K pickups in it as well. What's the difference? It's the magnet. So even just a magnet change can make a huge difference in the output of the pickup. And when I say output, what I mean by that is overall the voltage that it makes. I'll show you on a graph here in a minute what we're talking about. So the frequency will change, right, with the magnet change, and so will the amount of electricity that the pickup makes, because that's all you're really doing, is you're just making electricity with a pickup. So does that mean then that you just need more magnet and more winds for more output? Sort of, but there's a balance to it all. Because conventional wisdom would say that you would just pile a bunch of winds on a pickup and make it super hot. So those were 8.2K. This one is 16. So this is like twice as many winds. And also, so it's probably got 44 gauge wire, I would say, where that's got 42 gauge wire. 44 is very thin, right? So you would think that this pickup is going to be very muddy. And actually, it's not. Now it is more, but not bad, right? It's not bad. This is actually a really cool sounding guitar. Once you use it for various applications, I really, really like it. So this is a ceramic 8 magnet with I think 16K worth of winds. So it's probably 44 gauge, right? But the combination of the magnet and the winds makes it where it's fun. Not a big mud ball, right, that you would expect because it's engineered properly. So they are out there. Now, here's the thing though. What if you took vintage spec winds, added some magnet, and let me show you how we sort of handle this higher output thing. I like to kind of shoot the middle. So what we did was we took our kind of PAF spec pickup, which was, you know, like that 7.6K super low output wind, right? And then added an Alnico 8 magnet to it. So not ceramic, still Alnico. And it did something very interesting. We did this a couple years ago, and I really like it. Super sparkly highs without being brittle, really strong mid-range of a humbucker magnet, or a humbucker pickup, but not that muddiness. I really like that balance because when you look at how you play around with this stuff, here's what happens. If you pile a bunch of winds on a coil, basically when you put a bunch of wires together, really close together, and you put a bunch of them really close together, you get capacitance. And when you get capacitance, you get a kind of death to the high frequency and a death to the mid-high. All right, so when you look at this graph right here, let me show you this graph. What you're seeing is a bunch of pickups, okay? This is kind of funny. The boring, like, basic arc ones, those are EMG 81 and 85. Those are the boring ones that just kind of umbrella over the whole thing, okay? What you're seeing is also varying outputs, okay? So to the lower side, you're seeing a super, super low output single coil. Then we're also seeing a Strat, right? Those are the two bottom ones. Now the top ones are varying outputs of humbuckers. And what you'll notice is that the higher output ones, they sort of flatten out the mid-range a little bit. And that high end, that clarity, sort of moves around a bit, right? So you have to be careful with this because you want to make sure that you balance the high end. You don't want it to be brittle, way, way, way over here to the high frequency. You want it to be like a high mid and then above high mid. But you don't want it to be too high. Otherwise, it'll hurt your ears. You don't want it to be too low. It'll be muddy. So the trick here for me personally is to keep the output low enough, right? To keep the magnet selection the way I want it to get the amplitude, because you see the higher on the ladder, the more voltage we're making, right? So what I mean by that is the voltage that we make definitely affects how it hits the amp. So see, we're breaking the amp up. We're just at the edge of breakup kind of nicely, but we're keeping that clarity. And I really like that. Now we can go ahead and add a bunch more output to the amp and we can make this thing go full on high gain if we want and still maintain that clarity. But this to me is the important spot, is right at the edge of breakup, trying to understand what all that's doing. So if we take all of the myths that we learned, kind of throw them all out the window and say, okay, what do we want? Well, I want the clarity of a low output pickup. I want a little bit more overall output though, because I want it to hit the amp a little harder. So let's change the magnet. Let's wind it in a way that makes it to where there's not a lot of capacitance, killing a lot of highs. And let's have this kind of combination of stuff together. And that's what we came up with this Super 8 pickup that we came up with a long time ago, actually. Neck pickup side of that, we're still very clear. So it's really versatile, a little hotter than a PAF, but it just does all the things. I really like it. That's why we chose to have it to be one of the models that we put in our TTG HST that we built alongside them. This guitar is actually available on the website too if you want to buy it. So is what we're doing here totally new science? Absolutely not. Not at all. But I think it's important when we look at pickups to kind of make sure that we sort of understand that there's a lot of variables and don't think so much about the specs that are on the page as much as what we want it to do, right? What do you want your pickup to do? Do you want it to, I don't know, just completely go full shred? Do you want to stay super clean? Do you want to be somewhere in the middle? Do you want to do like I do and take a vintage tone-ish but push it a little with this Super 8 humbucker that we make? Or do I want to use our PAF, which we call our DAF, the Dylan applied for, and stay kind of more vintage spec with a normal Alnico 5 magnet? What do you want to do with that? Like, what is the result that you want, more so than what is on the page? And then have a conversation with your pickup builder and say, look, this is the build that I'm building. This is what I want to do. That is what we try to do at DylanTalksTone. So you can go to DylanTalksTone right now. You can buy our PAF, which is we call our DAF, and our Super 8. Those will be 10% off until next Sunday night at midnight. Definitely go check them out. The other thing you can do is, if you're not sure what to get in the chat on the bottom of the page. And it'll actually, the bottom of the website, and it'll actually go to my phone right here. It's not an AI thing. It's me. You message me. You say, hey, this is the pickup build I'm doing. This is the guitar build I'm doing. This is the modification I'm doing. This is the guitar I already have, and I want to replace the pickups. And here's what I want you to tell me, okay? Not what should I get, but this is the problem I'm having. I don't like it because it does this, this, or this. I want it to do this instead. If you tell me that, I'll try to put you in the right direction. And I think we'll probably have something for you. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for talking about humbuckers with me. My P90 is my favorite pickup in the world, but these Super 8s that we've got in this TTG HST are absolutely incredible. And so if you want to check out that guitar, definitely go to the website. You can pre-order your own, or you can buy this one that's actually already in stock, or you can just buy pickups for whatever project you're working on. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you in the next video.